Hello and welcome to the Purple Rock Survivor podcast, where every other week I don't talk to John, but he still likes to think this is his show. With me this week is Emma, who has a weird noise going on in the background. We're just going to pretend like we don't hear it. How's it going, Emma?
It's probably the neighbors or something. Sorry about that.
I hope so.
It could have been worse.
If so, we should put up front that because this is a live presentation, we will not be censoring it, and that'll be especially true if Emma's neighbors are home making noise.
Yeah, they sure make noise in their own special ways. All the time while I'm working. It's great.
From the stories you tell, it's almost like, let's just say, sea slug swallowing. No, that was wrong, and I shouldn't have gone there. But as horrible as that is, that does transition us to the very first topic we have to speak about this week. So let's do it. What do we make of Angela's moves this week? And I don't necessarily mean deep throating, seafood.
Oh God. Yeah. Well, they sure, had the appearance of being moves.
Yeah, I mean, the problems of being late with observations is just, people have already stolen a lot of the good thoughts. And, Gordon Holmes is like, so her plan was to put the target on someone who already has a target on them.
But with the added bonus of having people suddenly pay more attention to her.
Yes, and I think that's largely what was going on. And Stephen Fishback wrote about this in his column, and it was so perfectly Fishbackian, where he spends most of it talking about how it's not much of anything, but still says, yeah, that was a great move. And speaking of great moves, here's my son, who my co-host will note tried to interrupt the podcast 10 minutes ago, but we hadn't started yet.
Spoiler alert, guys. All of these interruptions are secretly planned.
Well, I mean, they're planned by them, not necessarily by me, although this time we were like, yeah, it's going to happen. All right, so yes, this is, son number one, which last week he was insulted when I called him the second son.
Yes, that was hilarious.
That's right. He gets the whole inheritance, and then Christopher will have to join the priesthood. I believe that's how it works.
My bobbleheads!
Yes, he also helped decorate my room. Because apparently it just wasn't dynamic enough for him when he came in.
Yes.
And apparently this is the podcast of Minions.
Well, that's why you have children, for their interior design skills.
Very much, yes. They're great at it. They like minimalist fare. You don't even watch those movies that much, but apparently you had to buy it that day. All right. Now everybody's worried how late he's up. Time zones are a thing. Two, no school tomorrow, because getting a week off like a week ago does not preclude also having just a random Friday off, because we overpay teachers in Canada. No, teachers are wonderful. They're silver bullet of everything, and I'm glad they don't have to always go on strike. Good night, Alexander. No? What, do you want to talk Survivor?
No.
A show you've never watched? Because why would I want to ruin it by having my children in the room when I watch? And then have lots of great takes of they sure like Michael because he actually never wins challenges. All right. Thank you, Alexander. Is there anything you would like to say to Emily? If so, you would need to put one of these because you can actually hear her. No, yes, I know. You get it from me that you don't actually listen as she speaks. Bye. That was very useful. Luckily, we hadn't talked about much other than, Angela's interesting challenge performances. Now, yes, Michael, the thing, so this is what she did in my estimation, is that finally, for the first time all game, somebody talks to her straight and tells her where her place is and, how people perceive her. And her big move was to completely sell that person out.
Yep. And, sell that person out to someone who, they wanted. Was it her who said this, or Desiree, who just last week said, you don't have to convince anyone to vote out Michael?
It was Desiree who said that. And yes, I believe she was there because it was.
She was certainly there.
Yeah, I mean, that's the reason why she voted for Libby, and possibly the reason why Desiree did as well, because they formed this other plan that Michael isn't really that worthy a target. And then Angela's like, I'm going to do this. And I just think it's because Angela was tired of being overlooked, as she has been her entire time out there. Well, actually, that's not true. She was useful for one vote. Yeah. And the second swap, she was the belle at the ball. Everybody needed her input. But other than that, as she says, and I think I sympathize, I understand that she was tired of like just being, Chris Noble's extra vote, and he treated her as such, as we saw and as she says. And so I get that. I get wanting to gain some level of control and respect, but what did she actually accomplish? If Angela does nothing this episode, isn't it highly likely that Michael's a target anyway?
Probably, and she would still be under the radar.
She probably still is under the radar. Like, I don't think she actually bought herself any kind of capital with anybody. I don't think anybody's like, okay,
I don't think she bought herself any positive capital.
I don't even know if negative. They'll be like, oh, thanks, Angela. Because, frankly, they probably don't even realize that they're not paying much attention to her. So when she comes over and talks about it, it's like, oh, okay, well, now she's with us. They probably still feel like, oh, yeah, Angela's with us. Honestly, her challenge performance probably put more of, maybe raised people's opinion of her and or put some level of a target on her. But
yeah, although I think, and I think Rob said this, though, but which is like, I actually didn't look at much of the press this week. Usually I feel like I'm the one who's telling you all the things that were said, and
did Libby do exits interviews? Because I tried to
Libby is like out of the country, which like, girl, when your boot episode is. But so she pulled a JP and just did like email questions or something, but I didn't see anyone actually publish anything. Anyway, I do feel like the gross food challenge is kind of the one you can win without people being like, oh no, they're a challenge threat. Cause like,
yeah, it doesn't translate very much. I would say, 100% that's true. The way she won might be like, because, she was showing some personality a bit. She was, again, nobody begrudged Cochran for also taunting people throughout the process, so maybe it would be nothing. And frankly, they were all very happy that she beat Michael. So I think that's a good read. She's probably not going to become a target. It's more just like, it was very much a performance by her of like, hey, look at me. And, good for you. Do that.
Yeah.
But more is just the way she was so convinced that like, her necessary skills and psyops is going to have this big operation. To what? Put a target on the buff young male? Whoa! She did nothing. This whole move was nothing other than possibly making her feel some form of, agency within the game, which she has not had any, and she still doesn't. But she did well.
No. I was going to say, but at least it's a little, it's a little more entertaining than she has been in the past.
Yes, she had nowhere to go but up. But I'm. Has your opinion of her changed? Because going into the episode for most of the season, my opinion of Angela was that she was a dull drip that was actively working to make her segments of the show less entertaining. And then she went ham on some sea slugs. What about you? Does your opinion change? Well, what was your opinion and where is it now?
I wasn't looking so much at the challenge. So.
Yes. The challenge for you could have been, let's eat a plate of mashed potatoes. You'd be like, no, look away, no.
Okay, that's like directly a joke I made on Twitter.
Was it? Darn.
I said something of like, I totally would have pulled a Wendell. I can't even handle lumpy mashed potatoes.
Yeah, see, I took your lines and made it a hot song. Mine was a little bit. No, I'm just stealing. Apparently, stealing is stealing other people's jokes is kind of a thing people in the Survivor community do. So at least I'm stealing in-house.
Subtweet it within a podcast. I like it. Yeah. So, but anyway, I would say pretty much the same. Like, started the episode being pretty like meh on Angela. Just hadn't seen much, and this was slightly better. So even if the move per se wasn't like super like effective in terms of like changing a lot of stuff. At least it was better to watch than what we had previously seen. And even if it's incremental, I'm always down for people to become more entertaining rather than less.
Yeah, I think what we got is, she's a bit of a kook, but ultimately, my opinion of her from springing from both the move itself and her enthusiasm for it is that there's a reason why people treat Angela like a doormat, because this is twice now where her original tribe has fairly clearly shown that they don't care for her as an alliance partner, and both times her reaction has been, "What can I do to get back with them?" So it's just like, yeah. So she's never going to do anything. She's never going to do anything to change the dynamics of the season to affect her in any kind of major way, and also, no jury is ever going to vote for her. Like, this is my joke from Twitter. I'll steal from myself. Is that, what if she got in front of a jury and her, she'd be like, "My big move was getting you all to vote for Michael," and they'll be all like, "Okay, we were going to do that, and also that didn't work." So,
I will say that her confessional that ended with her talking about all of the casualties was low-key terrifying.
That's right. I'm going to miss it.
And then sometimes, if the plan goes well, you have piles and piles of casualties. I was like, ah.
That's not necessarily an analogy with you. Yeah. Now, on the other side of the coin is the fact that, Michael, gave her the information, explained to her that not only was she left in the dark, it was, actively a plan to not trust her with information. And moreover, he was entrusted with that information. And that, so apparently, he's somebody they can trust with info. Angela, not so much. But how do you think he played that conversation? Because I kind of feel like maybe he was a little bit overreaching.
Yeah, I mean, I think part of the problem is we've now sort of established that Angela just doesn't take very well to the, like, "You're on the bottom, can't you see you're on the bottom?" and like blah blah blah. So obviously that wasn't gonna be super effective. But yeah, I don't know. And this might again be another thing where, like, the rare instance where his age does come into play. Like, maybe he's just not, and even him being 23, it might just, like, in theory, it might just be harder for the 43, 41.
Something like
I can't remember which one was Brendan and which one was Angela in the 40s. But
Brendan was the man.
What? No. God damn it. But she's got kids, like, with his actual age, she has kids older than him. Even with his fake age, her kids are around his age. So that's just sort of a natural disadvantage that it's going to be hard for her to, like, take him, I think, super seriously in the same way that her being a 40-something-year-old woman puts her at a natural disadvantage if she makes it to the end.
Yeah, I mean, maybe for her, the situation is like, how dare you pity me? I'll show you. But more like, yeah. I'm okay with him telling her where she fell in the pecking order and why things turned out. I think he then probably overreached in, like, so let's do something about it. Let's go vote out Wendell. Like, it's probably a conversation that you need to let marinate a bit, because by oversharing, he gave her, ammunition, to the degree of how much that was really important. I mean, maybe it did mean that Michael jumped Libby in the pecking order, but, obviously not really. And in fact, it was probably...
Right, it's only because he used his idol.
Yeah, but frankly, maybe it was better that the vibe in camp became so anti-Michael that he knew to play an idol, this week, as opposed to going home with one. When people just... Because maybe, frankly, finishing second in a challenge might have been enough to get him to jump over Libby. Libby going on a reward challenge with them might have been enough to move her behind Michael within the pecking order again. I really don't want to give Angela credit, but, like, I think there's reasons why besides, my own personal feelings. But I do think he pushed too hard. I think, there's lessons to be learned in the past of specifically, like, Yule, when trying to move over Penner, was comfortable enough to say to be continued on this conversation. And I think that's and I think Michael just got a little over eager, which is definitely not a thing an 18-year-old boy would do. It's yeah. I think the move is right. You tell her where she's at to try to build some trust. You do look at the possibility of her being the weak link that you will need. But I don't think right away in that conversation she's oh, she's totally on my side. It's time to make moves and make plans. You gotta slow down there, young man.
Yeah, it's almost like a less zany thing in Code Wrong when all of them were talking to Ty, and then Debbie's like, "We got him," and Ty's right there still. but yeah, I think in general, both when talking to Angela and then also when talking to Laurel and Donathan, Michael's biggest mistake was targeting Wendell. And this isn't because Wendell is a bad person for him to have targeted. He's probably, for Michael, the best case scenario to target. That's why he wanted to target him. But Michael's not in a position to go for his best case scenario. He is in a position of, he's in imminent danger of being voted out. He's got to go with the scenario that isn't voting him out or even, not voting an ally. People always say this, you've got to say to Angela, it'd be oh, what do you think? They're really leaving out. Who would you want to, who would you want to vote for? In theory, he's seen Laurel and Donathan are not necessarily ally, but he's seen Laurel and Donathan have been on the tribes with Wendell and Dominic. So, he's kind of got to assume maybe Laurel and Donathan have a bit of a relationship, so it's better, I think, to just say definitely for Angela because it's in theory her alliance, her tribe that he's targeting. But even for the other two, try to gauge of who do you want to target? Who do you think is the biggest threat? And then I don't care how close he might be with Kellen or something. I mean, maybe even then they could compromise and vote out a Chelsea or something. But you can't just dictate the move when you don't have that power.
Yeah, I think with Angela, 100%, you don't name a target. You get a sense of whether she'd even be comfortable moving at all. And then she might be the person that gets to pick. I think with Laurel and Donathan, it's you can talk about targets. I don't think there's, you should feel like you also have a relationship with them and that they should be in a situation where it might be time for them to make a move. I agree that you don't just be it's Wendell, right? It's got to be Wendell. I think you talk.
I think bringing it up is fine, especially, because there's more freedom to choose between the Navidis. But I think, at least from what I recall and what we saw on the show, it didn't seem like it was a discussion in that sense.
Yeah, I think he was pretty laser focused on Wendell. And I mean, I know why he wanted to take out Wendell. And as you say, you compromise with Chelsea, but what do you gain by getting rid of Chelsea? Right? I mean, we're going to get into it.
Yeah. A Navidi going home.
Sure, but it's still a 6-5, right? You need more than a Navidi going home.
Something. It's better than Libby going home.
Yes, but it might not do anything other than save somebody. And here's the other one. I like how you were cautiously trying to come in. That was.
I tried to trick you.
You were trying to trick me, but I have eyes on the back of my head. It's that green light right there. All right. Yes, I know. All you are is looking at the little box in the corner that you are featured in. Real talk. That's not always different than what I'm doing. Would you like to say hi to Emily?
Hi, Emily.
Would you like to?
Hi.
How was your night, buddy?
Good.
That's what everyone should be here for.
Are you ready for bed now? That crazy look in your eye suggests maybe not.
I think that's because he saw Gromit come back in.
Is Gromit? He just wants to be where the people are and whatever the highest concentration of them.
Like Ariel?
That's right. Okay, and then now we're just fascinated by our own face. So it's time to say goodnight. Can you say goodnight? No? Camera flick?
Good night.
There we go. Can you say goodnight to me?
Good night, Daddy.
Good night, buddy. I love you. Yes. Okay, so we're talking about whether target. It's yes. I mean, obviously, winning a vote is better than losing a vote, but I think if you're going to make a big move that still puts you down in numbers, taking out a bigger target is probably the way to go. I don't know.
This is just based on the theory that maybe he wouldn't be willing to vote out Kellen at this point for the same reasons that maybe Laurel and Donathan were, which we will get into. But so that's why I'm saying, like, maybe that's like if he says Wendell and Laurel says Kellen, like, and then they're at an impasse.
Yeah, well, let's get into it now, because frankly, this was the warm-up, and maybe it was good that we had this for all the lengthy, pointless interruptions that we had. Because the big thing that happened this episode was they took what was a vote that we all figured was going to happen and made it a little more interesting by teasing the idea that the original Malolos would once again take advantage of a split within the majority Navidis to win a plurality vote. And the biggest decision makers in that were the ones that actually had options. And that would be Laurel and Donathan. And what do you make by the choice, if indeed it was their choice, and we'll talk about that in a bit, of Laurel and Donathan to stick with the majority rather than take out Wendell?
Yeah, well, I know you hate it because it's going with the flow, and you've, overcorrected from the people who like it when they avoid risk to that you now think any risk is definitely the best situation. But I can see, why it would be an appealing thing. But I think given this very specific situation, it's the right call because, first of all, they're really not that close to the remaining Malolos. Like if you think about the tribes Laurel and Donathan have been on, if you think about even the original Malolo, like the people they were tighter with are gone. They're stuck with like the pretty people who they did, quote unquote, for those who are not watching, who they didn't necessarily have a bond with. Like, remember just last week when Donathan was like, oh, don't tell Libby and Jenna. Like, that's not a great sign for their relationship. And so, yeah, they probably need to turn on Wendell and Dominic, but obviously this is specifically Wendell eventually. But if they did it now, like they have no options. Neither of them really have much of a relationship with any of the other Navidis because of the way the tribe swap went out. Like Donathan, was briefly on a tribe with Chelsea, and sorry, I blanked for a second. Laurel was, briefly on a tribe with Sebastian, but who the hell knows what Sebastian is ever thinking? And then, so like if they voted out, if they went to target Wendell, then they've completely burned Dominic. They've really burned all the Navidis, at least for, they've burned all the Navidis, at least for the time being. Maybe there's wiggle room later, but at that point, the Navidis really have no reason to work with them. They still have the majority, just like they would with voting out Chelsea. And they, if they're going to trust someone, like the Navidis who are left over are more likely to trust Michael, or they'd rather work with someone like Jenna, who doesn't do anything, is a safer, just a number to have. So I think this is, yes, it's a bit of a punt, but it also, I just don't feel like they would have options after this. And this at least gives them a little more time to maybe form relationships with other people so that they have more options when it is time to turn on Wendell and Dominic.
First of all, I love that you just attacked me, assumed my position, and belittled it. I feel like the student is becoming the master. I'm actually torn on this because in the end, I think it's fine. It's fine, Right. They wouldn't be flipping to a necessarily better situation than the one they find in. The issue I have is I think people are highly overrating the situation that they're currently in. The situation might be worth risking. Maybe not in this specific instance because, as we say, if they make this move and they're successful, they take out, Wendell. Original Malolos are still down 6-5. Now, they're down 6-5 in a situation where the biggest power player within Navidi is gone and an idol is gone. And then we're left with these disconnected pieces, which maybe somebody would then see an opportunity. Maybe finally Angela would listen. No, that's stupid. Angela's not moving. But I mean, there are reasons why it might be worth risking, but moreover, I'm not sure what they're preserving has that much value. Other than, I agree, by not doing anything, Donathan and Laurel are probably not next week's targets. I would say they are probably lower than Michael and Jenna. Except once you kind of get past Michael, you get to the issue of like, why take out Jenna?
Yeah.
Why not take out Laurel? Or what if Michael wins an immunity or two? Then suddenly it becomes a situation because people are like, well, they're in a Final Four deal, but what people aren't talking about enough is that 4 is within a majority of 9. So that would mean that they're down 1 vote, which is the very same situation everybody's saying is the thing you shouldn't be risking for. Why make a risk when you'd still be down 1 vote? Well, what they're preserving is a situation where they're down 1 vote. Moreover, they're a Final Four in which I don't know Laurel beats any of the other 3 people within it. So maybe it's a situation where none of their moves they would have made is that great because their current situation isn't that great. Now, I do agree that time is maybe just what you buy, and maybe that's necessary. But it's like, well, you don't want to piss off those other 5. She has, from what we've seen, those 2 people have no relationship with the existing 5 Navidis that they aren't in a Final Four deal with. And some of it's just, geography. They haven't been with any of them. They were with Chris, and he's gone. I guess they were with Angela, but not really.
Like that's why I didn't even bring up Angela when I was saying how like Donathan was briefly with Chelsea and Laurel was briefly with Sebastian, just because we know that Angela's not going to do anything. But I would say that, yeah, I agree that I think they are just in a really tough position. I do think if they had voted out Wendell, there's a strong chance that Laurel, at least, probably not Donathan, Laurel becomes the next target, maybe even over Michael, because she's certainly a very strong challenge competitor as well. And now you've burned, Wendell's gone, you've burned Dominic, and Michael has the Kellen connection. So maybe, it's worth it to Kellen to be like, oh, let's push for Laurel instead. Whereas this week, it wasn't really worth it to try to save Michael because he is obviously a threat. I should probably put a pin in this, but I do wonder, and this wasn't something I'd noticed on before, but when you're talking, I do wonder, I agree about that Final Four being really tough for Laurel, but I wonder if the fact, because they know about the twist, the fire-making twist, I wonder if that kind of changes anything for this specific Final Four with like thinking like, oh, we don't really have to worry about Wendell and Dominic being super tight because we can do fire. Although I guess when you have the 2 strong pairs, they kind of usually go to fire anyway. So maybe not. But I need to regain my train of thought for something because I had a point, so you go.
Yeah, and it's just I just want people to recognize what they're preserving, what you don't want to risk. Oh my God, it would be such a huge risk. It's still not a very great situation. And so maybe there is an argument to be made that in that situation, you go for the win when it becomes available. And it's more just a general philosophy thing. Because again, I actually think it's fine. It's fine. I think that, if Laurel or Donathan lose this game, it'll probably be because things that happen later on. But some people actually do lose the game because they missed the one opportunity. And that's just the kind of the larger philosophical discussion that, I've probably had before, but maybe just nobody ever wants to believe me because I'm just always ranting about them and their favorites and insulting people for no reason at all because I'm mean. It's just like, your chance to lose the game isn't always something that you can put off. And maybe it's already too late. Maybe it happened because 2 swaps just happened to work out for Navidi and they're not in a great situation. But at some point, you need to just kind of say, screw it. This is our chance. I don't know how it's going to work out, but I know how this isn't going to work out. And right now, I don't like their chances. People, we're rating Laurel highly because she is playing a mistake-free game. And thus it feels like it could be win, but it's just like when you really dig into it, what's her path? Her path right now seems to be somehow the 4 beats the 9, even though I feel like there's 5 people in that 9 that view Laurel and Donathan as the 9th and 8th players within it. But maybe not. Maybe they'll be like, we can use them to get rid of Dominic and Wendell. But again, that doesn't really help you. And then if you get to 4, I don't know how they win.
No, so I agree with them. When you get to 4, I don't know how they win. That could be tough. Although, I mean, Bradley and like other people, though these were all pre-merge people, have said like, oh, if a Malolo gets to the end, like they would probably win just by being the underdog thing. But I don't know because if Wendell or Dom, like maybe if it was someone else, but like if Wendell or Dominic get to the end, especially Wendell, I feel like that's going to be hard to beat. However, regarding the 9 thing and like 4 still being a minority, the one thing I do think is that I don't think it's out of the realm of the possibility so let's say, Michael goes home next. Like if we assume just that that's probably the plan they're thinking will happen. Obviously, we don't know that.
If we don't do something this week, Michael will go and Libby will go. Is probably what, when Jonathan was proposing doing something is what they're thinking, right?
Right. So we're assuming Michael and Libby are gone. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility for them to pull in Jen and Sebastian. I think Sebastian, who the hell knows what is going on in his head, man? And you know what? Wendell brought him the damn show.
It's true.
That might be all it takes, because that man is insane. Plus, is he really that tight with the other women on Navidi? Like, can the fact that who knows how deep of a bond Jen and Sebastian have at this point? Like, Jenna has no reason to not vote with the last 2 Malolos who are left. Like, in theory, is that enough to get Sebastian win? Like, I wouldn't say it's guaranteed. I'm not, going to count them as a 6 or anything, but I think, because that's just purely fan fiction, but I don't think we've seen enough from either of them in terms of strategy to discount it either. And if they do get them as a 6, well, that's the final 4. I think Laurel and or Donathan can win.
Yeah, or Chelsea would be their 5th. Look, obviously there's possibilities.
Sure.
The one thing is they all seem like Wendell and Dominic's possibilities, not necessarily Laurel and Donathan's possibilities.
Well, I mean the four of them as a group pull those in, and then maybe from there you convince people to turn when it's a little more narrowed down. You have and there's only Chelsea. You get rid of Helen and Desiree and I don't know, Angela, I guess. then it's down to Chelsea. Maybe then you guys target Dominic. Yada yada. You get the idea.
Yeah. And this gets to the larger argument on why it was probably the right move again, and we're going to get this soon. Of maybe if it was even their move to begin with, of just saying this isn't enough. This isn't an exciting, a good enough reason to flip, especially if it requires flipping on Wendell. Time will tell. If we buy more time, more things can happen. That's more time we spend with people we don't currently have connections with. It's just, there is risk in not doing things, just as there is risk in doing stuff. And, because something is a scary thing to do is not necessarily the reason why you shouldn't do it. And a lot of people have seen their opportunities, just completely pass them by, and they didn't know what was happening. And then, they get to the late stage games, why does nobody want to play the game? It's you had your chance and you missed it. But I don't know if this is that situation. I can't really get that worked up about it. It's just, well, frankly, there isn't that much else to talk about for this episode. The episode did a good job of convincing us that this was a possibility, that this was a thing that Donathan at least was seriously considering. We don't know the level of what Laurel is considering because that's kind of her deal. We don't know what Laurel's considering in this game, and I feel like that's also what the people out there, besides Donathan, I think he legitimately feels she's his number one ally, and I think she legitimately is. She reciprocates that feeling. Yeah. But you started to feel that people have, obviously very much brought Laurel in. I think she's very good at getting people to feel like she's, with them to the degree that they just overshare information. She knows about Dominic's idol. She knows about Wendell's idol from this episode. Chris Noble was, planning things with her when he was still in the game. I think this is a great strength of hers, and probably, one in life that, she has the ability to, shut up and listen when people are talking, and they share with her. But I'm wondering if it is already, or if it will soon start to become a problem, that her thoughts and feelings about these things are like completely inscrutable. People don't know what she's actually feeling or giving them.
Yeah, I don't know. And like I know some people thought this like was reasonable, but I feel like her reaction to like Wendell telling her about the idol was like a little weird. I get being like, oh, that pair is really powerful. Like maybe I'm worried about that. That I get. But the being like, oh, I don't know if I can trust him. It's like, okay, like you watch Survive, like she's a super fan. Like she listens to our Hap, it's like you gotta know that not everyone like you shouldn't tell people about the idol, and you only do so when you're trying to like gain trust. So he's trying to demonstrate that as trust. Like, and it's not like people have talked about Wendell having a wrong read on her reaction, which is certainly true. That is definitely true. But her read is just as wrong. Because like he very genuinely, like in his confessionals, not just to her, is like, they are my final four. Like that's who I want to go to the end with. Like I am 100%. Like, so why is her read being wrong, not like seen in the, as being wrong in the same way?
I don't know. She's the more aggrieved party.
Because it's more paranoid instead of more trusting,
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I don't know, man. With her, I don't know what she's thinking or feeling at all. Again, I think people like her. Clearly, she and Donathan have, to some degree, successfully managed what none of the other Malolos have done, and that's integrate with the conquering party to the point where, like, even the people that she's not in an alliance with just assume that she was up on with them and up on things when they just openly discuss, that they're going to target Michael before anybody had discussed it with her. Like that, like it's taken for granted that they're with them. So that's a positive. Mm-hmm. Although a lot of that is also just luck, in that when the first swap happens, it seemed like it was a division of labor where Laurel and Donathan would work with Dominic and Wendell, and Libby and James were working with Chris and Angela. It was divide and conquer, but that side won.
James
so
did not pay off.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. They ended up picking the winning side. And maybe that's to their credit. Because, as we saw, it's like, well, do you like Chris better or do you like Wendell better? It might have been this winning thing to decide, we should probably back this horse instead of that one. But, I mean, it wouldn't have worked out at all if that tribe would have went to tribal council and voted out Wendell, for instance. But where I was like going with that. So good job getting people in. But we saw twice this episode of people kind of being like, what's up with her? Like Wendell wasn't quite sure. I think he left feeling, one way. But Kellen was also like, well, how's Laurel feel? Like she felt uneasy. And it's not, I think, because of anything Laurel says. I think it's the opposite. I think it's all the things that Laurel doesn't say. And right now it's great, especially, you're trying to play under the radar and hide. But at a certain point, to really build trust and comfort with people, and also to make them feel good about voting for you in the end, you might need to give them something. And I'm starting to wonder if she has that, because she's also not really giving us a whole lot. She's very keeping everything under wraps, which I think is a successful way to not make mistakes in Survivor. I'm not sure it's a successful way to win Survivor.
Yeah, because I could definitely see at the end, people saying like, I just felt like we never connected, and it might not even be because of like personal talks or whatever, but like, people, it matters if they feel like, I don't know, they get like yes, in a sense, sometimes it's just like a popularity contest, but there are like with Chrissy last season, they were like, yeah, sure, she like memorized facts about us, but it wasn't like, it didn't feel like they actually had a deep connection or whatever. And I could see not the same thing because Laurel is far from a Chrissy, but like I could see like a similar vibe becoming an issue, especially if she was against, say, Donathan, who, I mean, it turns out this depending on when he like figured it out, could be a bad thing with Chris Noble, who felt like, well, we talked about caring for our families and then you voted me out. What the fuck?
Yeah.
But
she probably won't get the "you betrayed me" reaction,
right?
But like, I also feel like that's not as big a thing with this new final tribal council format.
No, although I think that could be a thing that happens to Jonathan, because I could see it being in a similar vibe to like a Dawn or even a Hannah, where people feel like they're caring for you in some way. And like, I don't even know that they have to carry, like, this is something that's just kind of bad luck, bad circumstances for Jonathan, because I don't even know that he like has to be cared for, quote unquote. Because it's not like he's like crying all the time or having anxiety attack or anything like that, but because he's like this naive, guy who like from this small town and never been out of the country, and he talks like this, that people feel like, oh, we have taken you under our wing, and like, I'll show you the city someday. That then they'll be like, how could you vote me out? Like,
or it could be like Jonathan is not allowed to do these sort of things. You're not allowed to beat me. You're not allowed to betray me, in the way that Ty wasn't twice, right?
Yeah.
And another thought I had in Laurel's game right now is maybe it works really well with a particular kind of player. And that player is an incredibly self-centered, arrogant one. So that her, ability to just listen and let them talk and feel like they're in control really feeds the ego of a, Dominic, Chris Noble, or even Wendell. Whereas, maybe somebody, well, it clearly isn't working for me, but that's because she's not letting me talk. But maybe it won't work with like a Kellen or a Chelsea or somebody, or an Angela, who like needs more of a give and take. It's something that just this episode kind of, raised my eyebrow about. Both people walked away from conversations about like, where's she at completely? Yeah. And again, with varying degrees. So where we're at is about Laurel and Jonathan's decision. You're very pro. You think it was the right call. For me, I'm like, it was probably fine, but it annoys me how quickly people are willing to jump. It's like, there was, of course you don't do that, because these bad things would happen, and never consider, but also bad things just might happen because you didn't do anything. I'm not sure that their situation is better from moving down in the group. I don't know if their winning opportunities changed, but I think you've made the right point that those opportunities can still count.
Say that again.
But no, because it felt wrong. It wasn't quite what I was trying to say, that you made the right point. You made a good point. That's probably a better correction. But moreover, what if it wasn't their choice? What if Laurel and Jonathan were all ready to jump? They were like, let's do this. This is, we got to take out somebody sometime. As Laurel in her own confessions seemed uneasy with the fact that both Wendell and Dominic had so much power in this game because the idols. Because the other thing, if you're going to come back and me, it's like she can use these other people and turn them against Wendell and Dominic. Let's two have idols. So the longer you wait to make that move, the harder it's going to get. But what if they were ready to go and Libby just messed the whole thing up? Maybe Libby was just not willing to go with this plan because, all she keeps hearing is that she's too close to Michael and everybody just keeps putting their votes on her. And she doesn't want to shake the boat. She has to, just do what they say. And she wasn't going to make the move. What if Libby just messed this whole thing up and then ended up getting screwed by Michael's fucking stick?
That was a long way to go for that. If that's the case, then Libby is dumb. Like, because honestly, like, while it is defensible, and maybe this way, but while it's, obviously I think it's defensible for Laurel and Jonathan to not make this move, there is zero reason for Libby to not, because like, yeah, sure, she didn't know Michael had an idol or whatever, but like, they told her that the vote split was on them, and like,
and it was Jonathan. I should add. So that adds to the fact that like they were considering like this is a real thing for Jonathan at least. I have no idea.
Right, and like they weren't like, maybe she wasn't like the tightest ally with Jonathan, but she was on the same tribe as Jonathan the entire time. So that's got to count for something. But like, because Dominic tells her oh, vote for Michael, we're voting for Michael, which, by the way, wasn't really like a lie. Like, he's not gonna tell her, but by the way, just in case he has an idol, I'm gonna know it's for you. Like, he's actually giving, and she's like, everyone's, who's lying to me? I'm not sure. And it's like, even if Dominic, like, okay, there's no reason not to believe Jonathan. Why would he lie about that?
Yeah, exactly.
And then, and like, why would you trust Dominic over Jonathan? Man, having those two names together is confusing. But like, even what Dominic said is not like mutually exclusive from what Jonathan said. Like, even if, maybe Dominic would probably, I'm sure they all did, but like Dominic, I'm sure certainly would rather Michael go home than Libby. He's like, hey, like, sort of a hedge your bets type of thing. Like, yes, the Navides plus Laurel and Jonathan were planning on putting, it was supposed to be a 5-4 split, but what if it turned out Jenna really liked Michael or something, and like Michael knew about it and like voted for, like, there were ways where it could have gotten flipped the wrong way. So, he's telling, like, do what you're supposed to do, like vote for Michael. Like, it's, I'm trying to help you make sure it's him, because none of them knew that he had another idol. Although the people on like new Malolo probably should have, because they knew he, or at least like talked. I mean, I guess they did.
Well, I mean, they did plan for the possibility that he would, right? That's why a vote split exists.
But yeah, there was. I cannot think of a single like legitimate reason for. I don't even think that people would have been that mad if she had tried to vote out one of the Navides.
Yeah, and also, like, what are you trying to save? This is my whole point of why, everybody's like, you just love the big moves. It's like, no, what are you trying to save? You're losing. You, Libby, are losing. Yes, you've had votes every single tribal council. It's not going to stop. This is your life now. Like, the way it stops is by taking control. And
Angela even said, like, once you're a target, like, you kind of stay a target, which, like, is something I think that, like, Steven has brought up multiple times, like, on the podcast, just having, played more recently than Rob, that, like, yeah, it just is convenient to, like, oh, well, let's just keep voting her out. The same way that, like, the same reason we kind of figured that out, like, prediction-wise, like, well, Libby keeps getting votes, they're gonna vote her out eventually. They're not gonna just stop voting for her.
Yeah, because frankly, it's weird that they were focusing on it anyway, and nothing has, happened since to really change their reasoning, which I guess is, what good reason to transition to what it is. It's like, it's weird that, like, they keep talking about her like she's a big threat, and no, and obviously we don't see everything, or really most of it, but I mean, we saw what she did this episode, right? Which was clearly get her feelings hurt for possibly the first time in her life, people not, being on her side, and just wilting under it, running and hide. What do I need to do to make you guys stop writing my name down? And what you need to do is try to win. That's the thing you need to do. Clearly, you're never going to the end with status quo, so you should be taking a wild swing, even if it's a low percentage play. But like, she wasn't this big player, and I think all that happened for Libby is that she agreed to vote for Morgan once, and they just never got over that. They blamed her for that, even though, like, as we know, it wasn't her move at all. It wasn't her idea. Now, she participated within the move, but it was just as much Laurel's move as it was Libby's move, maybe more so. But Laurel is a trusted advisor, and Libby is Parvati.
Yeah. Libby ain't even Cook Islands Parvati, man.
No.
But yeah, no, I completely agree, and like was going to say the same thing, is that I think not even just that she voted Morgan. I think what screwed her game is Morgan saying, don't trust the cute blonde, because that put into the heads of, Dominic, and just based on what we've seen on the show, to a lesser extent, Wendell, that it was on Libby. And then we see in the pre-merge, after the second swap, Dominic telling Bradley, like, oh, Libby's dangerous, she's Parvati 2.0. It makes sense that he told that to other people after the merge. where this whole Libby and Michael are a power couple thing. I have no idea. They spent 6 days on the game together before the merge, but whatever. But yeah, I think that was it. It's like you have that plus you have that information from Dominic, who was like, well, Dominic had been on a tribe with her since the swap, and they just didn't go to tribal except for that one time where Navidi was voted out. So clearly she must be crazy. And like James is already gone at that point. Libby and Donathan are like well entrenched. Laurel and Donathan are like well entrenched. Everyone has the same fucking initial. but yeah, and add that to the sort of perception that you get a lot on Survivor of like the cute girl being this like evil flirtatious person, either that they're either that or they're dead weight, and they already know Jenna's dead weight. So
yeah, they can't all be. And I mean, ultimately this could just be a case of, let's put a target on somebody as long as it does. Except that like for some of them, it seemed like this was a real deal. Like Libby is a big threat. She was a bigger threat than Chris Noble. She's a bigger threat than Michael. And I don't think she ever was. And I don't think that's just edit based. I think it's just that one vote. She ended up taking the heat for it because, she wasn't allowed to do the thing that she did, which was vote in her own interest and not in, Dominic's. And she was probably friendlier with them than the other three were. In fact, this probably gets back to both Laurel's successes in the game and maybe why her decision was completely right. For one, is that she doesn't form maybe the deep enough bonds that they didn't feel betrayed by it. It was like, hey, you got to do what you got to do. Not like that Libby. And moreover,
they were both Catholic. How could she?
Yes. What people are saying. This is why Laurel can't be the person or one of the prime people to flip on them, because then they will only focus on her the way that they only focused on Libby.
Yeah. I was just going to say, yeah, like I think this is a rare case of like the gulf of, the difference of how she was discussed on the show and how she was presented is not because the edit is downplaying it. It's because like the players just got it into their heads that she was something she was not. Because that, and I think that's evidence on the show, not just by them not showing that much, but of her being like, why are people voting for me? Because
it was like, she didn't be like, of course they
know why people are voting for you. Like Wendell's not good. Like next week, Wendell's not going to be like, my name was written down, my word. Now, part of that's also, I mean, they told him that Michael was after him, but still, quick aside, I did enjoy Wendell being like, what? I liked that guy. Like he was so disappointed. Like not just that, like he was being targeted, but also like targeted by someone he thought was cool, and also that meant he now had to target that kid he thought was like a cool guy. I thought it was kind of funny.
Well, that kind of leads us to the next topic, because whether or not it was the right move to target Libby, sure, I mean, it was 100% the right move to guard against Michael potentially a blind idol. And also whether or not it was a right move to, make a move against Wendell or make a move, just let Libby and or Michael go. We were pretty happy to lose Libby instead of Wendell, right?
Absolutely. I mean, it was the best case scenario of these situations. It was my best case scenario last week, and as epic as last week was, it could have been a lot better, as you said on Twitter. And I know a lot of people were like, oh, this episode was boring, or oh, it's so predictable. And like, I know I predicted Libby to go home, but maybe I'm just like too invested and got, too latched onto Wendell or something, but I was nervous. I was worried, especially because, and thank God you figured out the math, that is because Libby and Jenna adding on to voting for Michael like affected the 5-4 split. But I was like, this is too many Michael votes. Oh my God, did they not split the votes? Why wouldn't they split the votes? No, like I'm glad for Michael that he's playing the idol because that's the right thing to do. But no, it's going to be like one vote for Wendell, and that would be everything. But no, it was fine.
Yeah, no, I mean, I wasn't counting, but it was like, this feels like more than 5.
I wasn't like literally counting, but I was just like, this feels like too many. Oh my God.
Yeah, and moreover, like, did they not split the votes? It's like, did Malolo actually, do this plan, or are they taking out Wendell? But yeah, no, I mean, Wendell still being on the show will make the season better than Libby still being on the show, because Libby was not adding anything to the show. I want to give you the opportunity to talk more about why Wendell is your favorite player remaining in the game, because I'm not there yet.
Yeah, well, I think I was kind of I was like you, where for a while I didn't have a strong favorite, per
A
se.
strong non-Chris Noble favorite, I hope you
mean. Right, obviously. But yeah, I think it was honestly, well, I won't get into that, never mind. But yeah, it was, I mean, I know this is lame, but to be honest, the voting confessional did a whole lot for me to be really into it, because that was really entertaining. And it was I already thought he was playing a pretty strong game. I think Laurel is playing a really strong game. Not really, a pretty strong game given her situation, because
and her situation is an important thing to note. It's not like she's been allowed to make power moves or whatever. She's probably doing the best she can with what she's had.
Exactly, because she had the disadvantage of starting on the wrong tribe, and it's not even because it's her fault. She's very good at challenges. They both, I mean, I know he did more so, but they both are great at the slingshots, man. That's impressive. But yeah, I think he's the right mix of he's playing. I think Dominic is just making so many weird choices that Wendell's that nice middle ground of making moves but not being crazy. And then just that voting confessional changed my life. I want it to be a meme. I want it to be replacing anything you're bad at podcasting, you're garbage at podcasting, stop.
Yeah. So I'm shut the audacity down.
Yeah, whatever it is, just keep using that forever. It should enter the public lexicon. I'm upset it hasn't already, even though it makes no sense that it would, because not enough people give Survivor the respect it deserves. But yeah, that's basically it.
Yeah, honestly,
and I mean, he's not bad to look at.
There you go. If I was to rank,
I'm mad at it.
My favorite players still left in the game, it's possible I put Wendell at number one. Maybe it's still Donathan, although most of that seems to be preseason stuff, and I can't be the guy that hangs on to a preseason opinion. I really can't. That would be the worst hypocrisy of a guy who, let's face it, has so much hypocrisy about things. But there's still something holding me back, and I think this is why maybe him getting voted out, where it would be a big loss of the season, especially when the other option was somebody, again, adding nothing, is that it's hard to root for any Navidi right now because I don't feel like any of their success is earned.
That's fair.
They got it because against, long odds, 2 swaps completely worked out in their favor. That's it. And they won the first 2 challenges, so it's not nothing. Winning 2 challenges, is something, but it shouldn't give you the entire game. And that's kind of what's happened. And that's why I'm I want something to happen just so that whoever wins, Navidi or Malolo, feels like they did something. Now, that will happen. If Malolo is just Pagong, then obviously whoever survives from Navidi has to beat other Navidis, everybody who had similar advantages. I'll also say that Wendell, he was one of the few Navidis who actually took a beat in the pre-merge, but that might not speak actually well. He got lucky that it wasn't him. Maybe it should have been him instead of Morgan, but she was a fine target too. And that's holding me back a bit. And also getting back to why maybe it's worth taking out Wendell, as where taking out Chelsea does nothing. I feel like everybody likes him. I think he might be the person holding Navidi together because there should be other tensions, right? Dominic voted out Bradley, and that hasn't come up yet, right?
Which annoys me so much.
Yes.
I mean, yeah, sure. I guess it's just because of knowledge we have from post game, but it just feels like it should have been an issue.
Yeah.
Because there was one thing with Morgan's, I think they were able to explain we didn't vote out more, and they now know. I mean, they were targeting Angela, which was already bad. There should be tension there.
That's one of the next thing. Wendell and Dominic voted for Angela. There seems to be all this thing here. Maybe it's because this, not fun, chill bro who builds furniture for them all day is making them feel like, this Navidi thing is cool. Let's just keep it rolling.
Like the Tyson of heroes versus villains.
Yeah, or like Jeremy in Cambodia, keeping Bayon strong, even when they would lose a few members here or there. It's just
Oh, sorry. You can. Mine wasn't important, but I was just gonna say. You mentioned him building furniture. I did just like this, like weird aside of like, oh, Wendell's building a kitchen.
Yeah.
As you do.
Well, here's the other, and here's more proof to my theory of why like Wendell might be the glue that holds it all together. Is anytime somebody talks about maybe we should target Wendell, people are like, "Nah, man, I'm not into that." Like it's just like immediately it's like like maybe they'd even be like, "I'm listening to like something else," but when it's Wendell, it's like, I want to keep him around, and that was not very much a thing.
How great he is.
Well, no, big ups for him, bad for everybody else. If there's a guy that everybody seems to like, then maybe you should not want to be playing with that guy.
Sure.
Especially when he's also proven very skilled.
I'm just saying in the sense
challenges.
of having a rooting interest.
Right. No, that's the other thing. If this season ends with Wendell as its winner, which it's looking more and more likely every week, I'll be cool with that. It's just I think I need the dynamics to change in such a way that it'll feel like it just wasn't fait accompli because some swaps went the right way.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. I can get that. And also, man, I know we try not to talk about the fantasy leagues as much on the podcast as we did in the old days, but goddamn, I had the second pick. I could have had him, but I was worried because he was Jeff Probst's winner pick, and he was like Matt Van Wagner's winner pick, and the commenters, it was like everyone's most drafted guy. Before that was Rourke, and it was Mari, and so I was like, oh, well, obviously that would be a terrible choice.
Yeah, at this point, it's the only strike against him. It's the only strike against his winner's edit is that our people were really into his chances before the season started, and that should be a death knell, but broken clocks and all of that. Just like that's why I've still been cheering for like Wendell to possibly go home the past 2 weeks, even though I like him, because it's like, okay, well that means something will be different, and then from this point on, it's not about the swaps. For me, it's still about the swaps, and that leads into my prediction for this week. And the next time on Survivor, and if you're somebody who considers them spoilers, I mean, ultimately, this site probably shouldn't be for you. We talk about it every week. But we are going to talk about the next time on Survivors because it suggests that Desiree is ready to make a move. And she's going to team up with the Malolos. And we'll talk about more next week when we actually have context. But that seems like an incredibly stupid move. It's too late, man. You just thin the numbers out. Remember, we spent earlier in the podcast talking about how that accomplishes only still in one minority. And also, why would you want to jump to somewhere side where like everybody else is closer to each other than you? But anyway, maybe that's not actually what's going to happen. But it seems like she tries to make her move, and then Laurel, sells her out, and then there's this whole thing, and it seems to suggest that this is the week that the Navides are going to break up. That my worry that you got to make a move or the Pagong is just going to happen is unfounded. This is the opportunity they were looking for, and I don't buy it for a second. I think the Pagong continues, and I think Michael goes home.
Yeah, I mean, I can certainly see that. I think on the other hand, trying to think of like how remember that was it Blood versus Water where like all of the next week on Survivors were like just actually very straightforward and not tricking us at all.
It was a bit like that last season too.
Yeah, and I don't know. I just feel like the other thing is I feel like, I'll give like Desiree, while I don't, has obviously not been a huge character on the show, but unlike a Libby or a Jenna or a Chelsea, when we do see her talk, like it's not the most boring thing I've ever watched. And so it feels like there's got to be some reason why they're not showing her a little more. And so it just seems harder to believe that she'd make it that much farther. So I'm going to just say Desiree.
My thing is so maybe that's all legitimate that she, gets caught trying to make a move. Other than hurt feelings, why care? If you're the other Navides, why care? What can Desiree do to hurt you? She made her move and she missed. She took a shot and she missed. And clearly the former Malolos, if again the previews are accurate, which is the only reason why you should ever be predicting Desiree in the first place, is that belief in the previews. She tried to make a move and it didn't work. They immediately just told you about it. So she's not going to work with them. Laurel and her are not going to work. Just keep her around. She's not a threat at all. Michael might still be.
Yeah, I mean, that's what they should do, but we've certainly seen people be like, oh, they tried to make a move against me. I need them gone.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, I said other than hurt feelings, as though that's not the only reason they will need.
Especially, like, what if she targeted Kellen? I can see that. I mean, Kellen got pissed off for the first time because Michael told Angela she was left out of the vote.
Truth.
So
because Michael told Angela the truth, yes.
Yeah, exactly. Like, so if say Desiree and, they've played together the whole time, even though they weren't actually on this, according to Morgan's exit interview, weren't actually on the sort of same side of Navidi back in original Navidi. Like, they've since,
Desiree didn't vote the same way as her just last week.
True. Yeah, for reasons that are still kind of unclear, because it seems like Angela wasn't in the loop, but it seemed like Desiree maybe was. I don't know. What's weird.
I don't know why you would think it seems like Desiree really was. I mean, maybe it's possible, but what is Desiree's Sloan vote accomplishing at all if this is a vote split? All right, 10 of us are voting this way. Desiree, you vote this one way, and nobody talked to Angela. I think, honestly, the more plausible explanation is Desiree was left out, just like Angela was. And in fact, that might inform the reason why she's like, enough of this. I'm flipping on them to go Malolo. They clearly have been leaving me out. I'm not important.
Also, I meant to bring this up when we were talking about like how Libby was portrayed and stuff, and the people who decided she was like a threat. Like, Desiree wasn't even ever on the same tribe as her until the merge, but she seemed like the most gung-ho anti-Libby. And well, no, I just figured out maybe she knows about who Libby is as a person.
Yeah, maybe she just got a buy.
In which case, like, more power to you. But...
Yeah, she's seen the Libbys before in her life, and she's like, nah.
Yeah.
Bye,
that would check out. That would make a lot of sense. But if it's like just based on like the game, it's really random. But if they had a conversation about what their lives are like and Libby was honest about it, that might have done it.
I don't really believe in Black Lives Matter, and then it's just like, okay, gone. You're gone.
All lives matter, right. But especially blue lives.
Blue lives, that's right. It's a big controversy that nobody thinks policemen should not be killed. It's something we need to really put on our Facebook pages. Look, I'm not worried about if our politics offend you now. What the hell have you been doing?
Yeah, like you've been sleeping.
Our show isn't even that good. But yes, my basic point is, I believe that Desiree is going to get her spot blown up, but I think the very nature of it being blown up just renders her, inert. Who cares? You took a shot, you failed, and maybe you get pissy, but I don't see that's any reason to deviate from the planned pagonging, at least not until Michael is gone.
But what if Michael wins immunity?
Then maybe. Although I'd still just take out. Well, I mean, I'd take out Laurel if I was the big group, but Jenna is fine enough. Let's just get another vote over with, and then maybe Michael.
And I'd prefer that.
Yeah. All right. So that's enough about Survivor this week. Some of you may see these opinions as rehashed because we also discuss our ideas before we go on the podcast on our website within comments, which you can find at www.purplerockpodcast.com. We also share our opinions on Twitter. The show is Purple Rock Pod, where John tweets, I don't know, like 5 to 6 things an episode. It's really not that heavy anymore. You tweet like 3 hours later, like 7 to 8 things. And then I tweet once everybody's gone to bed and not live at all. In fact, after I've already watched the episode in some often weird reverse chronological order at Purple Rock Andy. Did we say your Twitter handle?
You didn't. It's Purple Rock Emma. But yeah, I read your tweets like after I've caught up on the live blog.
I'm not a live thing. Well, for one, again, I'm not watching live at all. I'm watching on TVR, so it'd be even weirder if I'm trying to live blog. But also, I've seen what happens to the greatest minds of my generation when they try to live comment on Survivor, and that seems to be that like the simple machinations of like new, like advantages and stuff just can't grasp it. Like, I don't understand. I thought they give up their vote or they don't. It's like, just pay attention to the show and then comment. Yeah. That's my stuff.
I've actually tried, I've kind of pared it down a little bit, I feel like, especially, and then the other thing is, although they were just such softballs down the middle, I still kind of fell for it this time. But like the really obvious jokes, I'm like, I even said, I was like, you guys have all made your Chelsea participated jokes already.
That's right. There's really no point in us trying to get our jokes off live anyway. Those are gone. Now you got to really kind of think about it deeper and then get the choice cuts that nobody is reading because they're already in bed. That's my Twitter. Yeah, follow me now. You can subscribe to the podcast at different places. Obviously, if you are and you would like to, you can watch us on YouTube at Purple Rock. What a pod, I don't know. Search Purple Rock Podcast. And subscribe, like. That's what people talk about on YouTube, right? Like and subscribe and hit a bell. I mean, it's not real.
I don't know. I think rate the podcast on iTunes. It really helps. It helps people find it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't care if people
want more people.
I mean, we want like 5 new people a season.
They might think differently.
That's right. I'm already, and I discussed this privately, but I'll discuss it personally. I need more people to start agreeing with me, or my just interest level in sharing this has gone away. I've somehow managed to create an echo chamber in which nobody echoes my thoughts. And for one, bravo to all of you. Good job and keep it up. But what actually ends up happening, because I've stopped visiting almost all other sites, is I just fight with the people who are goodly enough to watch my show. I should just probably start going to Reddit so that I at least fight with other people, or find a healthier outlet for my ways. Anything else?
Well, I guess I could say someone had to say it. I'll say it. You're trash at podcasting. You're garbage at podcasting. You can't podcast. You have no original thoughts. Put the mic down, bro. Hey, it can still be a mic. Put the webcam down, bro. I got nothing. I can never think of something for the use an eraser line. There's no good equivalent for that for any other medium.
See?
It doesn't even really make sense when he said it.
Well, from the Ponderosa video, we know that Chris Noble actually likes to write. He's not a freestyler. These are things, pad and paper.
That's why he won't freestyle rap. That's why he won't rap battle Wendell.
That's why, yes. All right, so you're watching on YouTube.
I apologize to everyone for what I just did.
I know, hey, that shows what Wendell did was pretty special, because he came up with it originally, and you were just trying to copy it, and even still, he just...
Yeah, you did a good job. I think if I was roasting you with something original, I probably would have done better. And now I'm going to stop interrupting.
If you were roasting with something original, I would have continued to interrupt. If you're watching on YouTube, it's just going to stop. And if you're listening, I'll throw some music on like I often do. Didn't want to be your ghost. Didn't want to be anyone's ghost. Didn't want to be your ghost. Didn't want to be anyone's ghost, but I don't want anybody else.